when I was in there, I think I just sat in there and had a cup of tea and a biscuit. Like, I don't think I actually learned any English.
You're listening to You OK Hum with Miss Greater Manchester Galaxy. Miss Greater Manchester Galaxy supports the Trussell Trust, the Christie's Charity and Mind Mental Health UK. I'm also sponsored by Bursting Wardrobe, which is a pre-loved clothing store. They're based in Ashton and Marcusfield, and you can also check out their website, which is in the bio.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of You OK Hum with Miss Greater Manchester Galaxy. My name's Paige and I'm here to talk all things mental health, body positivity, self-care and everything and anything in between. Just a disclaimer, I am not a mental health professional, I'm a mental health advocate, which basically means I look to inspire and help people in any way that I can, but like I say, I'm not a professional, I'm just an advocate. So we've got a very exciting episode today. I'm joined by the lovely Victoria Hind, so welcome Vicky.
Hello. Thank you
so much for coming on. I'm really excited about this episode because it's something that we can both relate to, so we can both kind of put like our thoughts and feelings into it. So if you just want to introduce yourself really quickly.
Hi, so like Paige said, I'm Victoria Hind, but most people call me Vicky. So Paige calls me Vicky, so if she does randomly call me Vicky, that's why. I'm Miss North Yorkshire Galaxy, and we're here to talk about dyslexia awareness because it is something that we both struggle with.
Mm-hmm. Amazing. So we will get cracking on. So when was it that you got diagnosed with dyslexia?
So I can't remember being diagnosed with dyslexia. So my mum always said I was really clever up until I was in reception. I was a very confident child. But then as soon as I started school, they knew something was up because my confidence just dropped and I wasn't picking up things up as much as the other children. So they diagnosed me in like, I'm going to say reception. It was around about that time. It might have been year one. I'm not sure, but yeah, I can't remember. So it's something that I've always known I've had. But when you're that age, you don't understand what it is. So when you put on the table with all boys and your friends are on one table, you just feel like your teacher hates you, not because then you don't realise, oh yeah, it's because I need a little bit more help than they do. Yeah. Just
So you was diagnosed quite early on. That I didn't get diagnosed until, well, it was mentioned to me when I was in school. I think I was about maybe 14 when it got mentioned to me. But I didn't actually get officially diagnosed until I was 17. So I was quite late on. So I just thought that I was thick all the way through school. I just thought, why can't I read like everybody else? Why can't I add up as quick as everybody else and everything? And it turns out I was actually just dyslexic.
Yeah, even though I knew that I was dyslexic, I felt the same. Like I remember thinking, like, compared to all these other children, I'm so stupid.
And that's the thing, like, just because you've got dyslexia, like, a lot of the time people think it's because it makes you stupid, but there's many smart people out there that have got dyslexia. Like, I think Albert Einstein had dyslexia as well. So, like, it's not just because you've got dyslexia, it doesn't mean that you're thick. It just means that you don't read the same way that everybody else does, or you don't compute things the way that everybody else does. And that's why, like, I'm really glad that you do raise awareness for dyslexia because, we are all times with the same brush that we're just thick, and we're actually not. We're actually really clever people.
Thick or lazy.
Yeah.
Like the reading part, you're lazy. It's like, no, I just struggle with it.
Just want to add a disclaimer for anybody who's watching on YouTube, by the way. We're recording this on the hottest day of the year. So I am remarkably sweaty, which is why I've got no makeup on. I don't know how Vicky's feeling, but I am absolutely dying right now.
Got more water, just in case.
So for anyone who's watching on YouTube, I apologise for my appearance.
Me too.
So obviously with your dyslexia, how do you find that it kind of what's the word I'm looking for? Kind of like affects you in your day-to-day life? Does it affect kind of your work and things like that, or?
So when I'm texting people, I normally talk to my phone, like press a little microphone button on there, which if you don't know that you can do that, people do think it's quite weird, and I have to explain every time somebody sees me do it. I'm just picking up my phone so that the spellings and grammar and everything are correct on my like text that I send. And when I'm more tired, the tireder I get, the more my dyslexia like affects me. So like when I'm like text you at night, I think you can tell more that like I'm dyslexic than in a day because all the words get jumbled up together.
Yeah.
And then like at work, when you get like pages and pages of stuff coming down, it affects me. Like I can read this bit of paper about 6 times and I'll have read it, but I can't tell you what it says. Like if you ask me what it said, I'm like, I don't know. So what I do is I pretend I've read it and then ask my colleagues questions about it and be like, oh, what's your opinion? And then they can actually tell me what it's about rather than me having to read it.
And like your dyslexia is a bit more advanced than mine is. So you kind of have like dyslexia where you struggle with like, what's the word I'm looking for? Like you struggle with like things like dance routines and things like that, don't you?
Everything. My dyslexia is as worse as you can get. When they tested me, you can't actually get it worse than me. But quite a lot of the time I don't come across as dyslexic as I am. And then when people find out that I am, like, oh, you're doing so well considering.
Oh, I hate that. It's so condescending, isn't it? Like there's probably people out there that don't even know that they've got dyslexia and they've got it. Like it's not don't get me wrong, it is a challenging thing, don't get me wrong. Like if I couldn't have dyslexia, I would obviously wish to not have it. But when people say things like, oh, you're actually really smart considering and things like that, it's, you know, we are normal people as well. Like just because we're a bit slower at reading, or, you know, like for me, my dyslexia is the letters move around the page and numbers move into different orders for me. And spelling I'm not great at either, so that's my dyslexia, but mine's only like quite mild, whereas yours is obviously a bit more advanced than mine. But yeah, when people are like, oh, you're actually really clever, yeah, I know I am.
When you said as well about the numbers moving and stuff, I also struggle with that quite a bit because I work in a supermarket, and when you're reading the money out, sometimes I read it out backwards, and obviously customers don't know that I'm dyslexic, so I'm like, oh yeah, sorry, just joking.
No, I'm the same. I used to work in bars, so I used to work on tills quite a lot, and I used to be the same all the time. Or like trying to count the change, giving it back to him, like was always a major struggle because I'd be like trying to like make sure that I'm doing it quick enough for the customer to not get annoyed. But then numbers is a really, really big thing for me. Like if somebody tries to ask me to read their like debit card number, is a big no. 16 numbers all in one. No. So with your dyslexia, do you find that you have like anxiety that comes around it as well? Like, because I know that you do suffer with anxiety as well. So do you find that they kind of both go hand in hand sometimes?
Not really anymore. I know that when I was younger, it's almost mostly when I was younger. Like now I've grown up, I know how to go about it and everything now, but I'd be so embarrassed to tell anyone that I was dyslexic, and because it would trigger my anxiety. And like if somebody found out I was dyslexic, I'd feel like it was shameful, and it's not, obviously, but like now I'm more open with it. It's quite thanks to my boyfriend Jordan, really, because when I'd be like, oh, I can't read, he'd be like, yes, you can read, you just can't read very well. So it's just having that confidence to be like, actually I do struggle, but like it's fine, I can go around it, like there's other ways I can do. So it doesn't
completely agree.
My anxiety as much now as it did when I was at school and up until I was like 19, but it did when I was young.
Like the thing with me with the anxiety and the dyslexia, what I get anxious about is if somebody asks me to read something to them, that's when like my anxiety comes in. Like I've obviously got a 4-year-old nephew who loves having books read to him, but I physically cannot bring myself to read a book to him because I just know that he doesn't know that I'm going to get the words wrong. Like he's 4, he don't know what the book says, but but my anxiety just goes, no, you cannot read this book out loud in case you mess it up. And that's where like, if I was to ever have kids, that's where I know I would really struggle because I physically cannot read something out loud to somebody. And if I do, I have to read very slowly.
That's what school does, I think, because they expect everybody to be able to read things out. And if you're dyslexic, that is one of your worst fears, getting asked to read it in class. You can't do it. My teachers always knew I was dyslexic. And in year 11, I'm going to say, they went around the class and normally they'd skip me, but for some reason she was like, Vicky, you're reading today. And I was like, I read like a robot. I was literally like, and I can read in my head fine, but it's just out loud.
Yeah. And then if I'm reading in my head, I read so quickly, but reading out loud comes out so much more slowly than it does in my head.
And all the other children were like laughing at me, and it was so embarrassing. Like I think I ran out of the class crying. From then on, I didn't have to read ever again out loud, but it's the fact that everyone in my year thought I couldn't read. Yeah.
And that's the thing, like, especially when like we've like obviously if there's any school kids that ever listen to this or anything like that, like, you know, that is the thing that as you get older, you do obviously accept it more. But when you're a kid, like obviously other kids are laughing at you because you're not as advanced as them and you're not on the same level as them. And that's where like you do feel like that you are stupid, because there's all these people around you that are laughing at you and taking the mick out of you, when just because you're not at the same reading level as them, or just because you can't read just as fast as them. And it is really, really difficult for kids. And I do think that we are coming along with the times at the minute, like in the social world, we are learning to be more accepting of some things. But I feel like dyslexia is something that is going to have like be a taboo subject for a while, and especially with kids, like they are definitely still going to get bullied for it.
And I do feel like you said, if there's anybody watching and they do struggle, they can message us, because we've been there, like we know what it's like.
Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons why I'm raising awareness for dyslexia with my pageant journey, because I'd have wished I'd had somebody there for me that I could talk to that I didn't have.
Did you find that when you was in school, there wasn't really a lot out there for dyslexic people as well? Like when I was in school, there wasn't there was no like tutoring, there was no like assistance or anything like that when I was in school. There was no help whatsoever. So I just kind of muddled along and struggled really. And that's why I didn't get great GCSEs, because I didn't get the extra help that I needed.
So I had a teaching assistant in my class like every time I was in, because like, and they were in there for me because, like I said earlier, I am very dyslexic. Because I don't come across as very dyslexic and I am actually quite smart, they'd be helping like the children that weren't as, like, I don't want to say weren't as smart as me, but they were helping the other children that they weren't actually in the class for. They're like, although I was supposed to get the help, I didn't actually get it.
Yeah.
And like my school was very much like that. Like they were like, oh yeah, you can come to extra English lessons in the base. But when I was in there, I think I just sat in there and had a cup of tea and a biscuit. Like I don't think I actually learned any English. But then I did have a few teachers that they made sure I left school with, like at least a science GCSE. So I do have a BTEC science GCSE. And I think Miss Megson, she wouldn't let me leave without getting it. So is that positive? But
yeah, there definitely were in school. There were definitely some teachers that were more supportive than others. But as I say, because mine got mentioned to me when I was young, but then I didn't actually get diagnosed until I was 17. I could definitely see the difference, because obviously in school I had no help, and then in college there was 4 of us in my class that had dyslexia. So there was a teaching assistant that would sit in our class and she'd like dot about between the 4 of us. And I ended up coming out of college with a distinction star and 2 distinctions. Whereas when I left school with 3 GCSEs. So it just shows the difference that just having that little bit of extra support there really did help.
Yeah. Did you get extra time in your exams when you were in college?
Well, I did a BTEC, so luckily I can do exams.
No, I always got extra time in my exams as well. And I was supposed to get a reader in my exams, but how are you meant to have a reader in an exam? Like you meant to, well, they always said, oh, you're going to have a reader, but then like, what's the reader going to do? They can't tell me the like things, can they?
Yeah, like I did go to uni for 9 months before I dropped out. In uni I did get extra. I think I only did 1 exam when I was at uni. I did get an extra 25%, but I didn't actually end up needing it. But it was nice to have it there, just in case I did need it. So, do you know what? I had a load of questions, but because of the heat today, my brain has gone absolutely to mush. So just while I think of another question, have you got anything that you want to kind of have a little bit of a chat about? Or
so how have you been doing with, well, obviously the heat and stuff, but how's the heat affecting your mental health? Sorry, Evan.
I mean, I'm weird with the heat. So like, even though I'm absolutely sweating, like, and I can't function properly, I actually feel a lot happier when it's warmer. And I know that sounds really weird, but that's why I moved abroad, because being in the heat and seeing the sun and whatnot just puts me in such a better mood. Like, just absolutely like puts me in such a high mood. So yeah, it's weird. Even though I really, really struggle with the heat, I really prefer the heat than the cold.
That's good though. I think that's quite, like, my granddad's like that. So like in the winter he's a lot more like not depressed but down, and he has to have like lights on and stuff. And in the summer he's a lot happier because of the sun.
So I've got another question for you. So a little bit of an easy one this. So if you had a chance to go back to school and give a little bit of a talk to kind of students that think that they might be, you know, of the same reading level as you or struggling in the same way that you did, would you go back and would you do the talk? And, you know, would you kind of share your experience with school kids now?
So I wouldn't like to go back to my actual high school,
Yeah.
because I hate it, and I think the anxiety I would get going back to that place would be like a big no-no.
Yeah.
Also something that part of me I do want to do, like maybe, you know, if I was to actually win Galaxy and had the big crown on my head, then I'd go back to show them what could actually be possible. But I would like to go to other schools and like talk about it and just tell them like, you're not alone. Like 1 in 5 people have dyslexia, like it's more common than you think it is. And then like actually try in school, because I didn't try in school because I didn't want to try and fail, which I didn't actually realize it was something that I was doing at the time, but it was like in the back of my mind always, and it was just something that I didn't realize I was doing this until one of my friends said to me one day when I was upset about not getting any GCSEs, well, hardly any GCSEs. They were like, Vicky, if you'd actually tried at school, you would have got your GCSEs. So I would just tell everyone to like try the hardest. It's all you can do, and it doesn't affect you. Like in later life, being dyslexic isn't a big deal. Like, you know, loads of people have dyslexia that have amazing jobs. So
like you've just recently done a TikTok as well, haven't you, on celebrities that you wouldn't think have dyslexia. I can't remember who was in the list. Can you remember anybody that was in the list?
Jennifer Aniston was in it.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Walt Disney. And they were just like her. Walt Disney, he has got out. Obviously, we mentioned earlier that Einstein's got dyslexia. I've got some pictures up on my phone because I was doing it. I'll just have a look. 2 seconds.
Yeah,
sorry.
no problem. But yeah,
it's trying to remember off the top of your head, isn't it?
I know. I remember watching it, and I remember Walt Disney being in it. I can't for the life remember anybody else that was in it. But like, if we just talk about like Walt Disney for a second, like obviously the man was. I mean, was he a billionaire or he was obviously very wealthy, very well off, and obviously he had dyslexia. So it just shows that even if you've got dyslexia, it doesn't kind of stop you kind of living your life the way that you need to, and you can still get to where you want to be just because you've got it. Like it doesn't put a halt on your life, does it?
No. Nelson Mandela's dyslexic as well. Cher, the singer,
I remember that one being in the video.
Holly Willoughby. I didn't know that either.
No,
but apparently recently done quite a big thing about like coming out, like it's a saying that she's got dyslexia. So and then Bella Thorne, that was a big one for me because I used to love her when I was growing up. And there was an episode on Shake It Up where she said that she was dyslexic, and that was a big thing. And I remember being so angry with her. I was like, it's the biggest secret ever. Don't tell anyone. Because at the time I thought it was a massive secret for me. And then obviously now it's not. But
But yeah, some of them are just really shocking because obviously these people, you know, some of them we see every single day, like Holly Willoughby, we see her on telly every single day. Obviously she's got to read a script as well, hasn't she?
Yeah, she will do.
Yeah, so she's got to read a script, but yeah, she's got dyslexia. And obviously Jennifer Aniston, she's got to learn, like when she was in Friends, obviously she was in Friends for 10 years. That's a lot of scripts that she had to memorize, and she managed to do it. So it just goes to show that, you know, if you do put your mind to something and you feel like that you can get somewhere, you can do it. And there's these celebrities out there that do prove to us that we can do it if we put our mind to it. So just one last question for you. What would your one piece of advice be to somebody who thinks that they might be struggling with dyslexia or does struggle, even just struggles to read or anything like that, just anything kind of around the dyslexia spectrum?
It's not a big deal. Like, it's not as much of a big deal as you think it is. There's ways around it. Like, if you look it up, you can look up online. Like, there's this thing called Grammarly, and it checks your spelling online. And like, you can talk to your phone to get your spellings and stuff out. You can even type something in Google Translate if you don't know what it says, and it'll talk back to you. I also do that quite a lot. And don't be ashamed of it. Like, it's not embarrassing. I wish I hadn't been embarrassed for it as long as I was. dyslexia. Have you got any advice? Because I know it's something that...
Honestly, everything that you've just said, especially the don't be embarrassed and don't be ashamed, because like we've both obviously been ashamed and embarrassed by it for so many years. And as you get older, you realise that, you know, like I've said all the way through this podcast, like you can still do whatever you want to do if you put your mind to it. All right, you might struggle a little bit more than the other person in your class or the other person in your workplace. You might struggle that little bit more than them, but you're still as capable as them to get to where you want to be. And you know, we are just normal humans at the end of the day. We just read letters backwards. So yeah, it's absolutely nothing to be ashamed of. It's a bit of a superpower, really, isn't it? It's a uniqueness about us.
Yeah, it's something that I wish I'd accepted a lot.
Yeah, me too. It's probably only been over the last, I'd probably say maybe 3 years that I've actually accepted the fact that, yeah, I am dyslexic and it's not a big deal.
Yeah, and I like the fact that you said it was like a superpower.
It is though, isn't it? It is, you know, it's our unique factor. It's what's different about us, and it's, you know, what makes us us at the end of the day.
Yes.
Oh, well, thank you so much for coming on, Vicky. I really do appreciate your time. Thank you very, very much to everybody for listening as well. I will drop in, Vicky does have a dyslexia social media page, so I will drop that in the description below so that you can go and follow it and keep up to date with Vicky as well. I'll also post in her other social media pages if you want to see her pageant journey. Also, we'll put in some websites and whatnot down below for anybody who does feel like that they might be struggling with dyslexia. And like me and Vicky have both said, if you do feel like you are struggling or you do have dyslexia, please don't be ashamed of it. It's your unique factor, so do not be ashamed whatsoever. But thank you very much. You can listen to this podcast on Spotify and YouTube and tune in every single week on a Tuesday for the next episode. Thank you very much.